Okay, 1933 to 1934, democracy to dictatorship, how Hitler transformed himself from being another Article 48 Chancellor in January 1933 to being the unchallenged dictator of Germany by 1934. You should, on the one hand, make a timeline of major events, and on the other hand, I'd recommend that you do a mind map of the major factors identified here in the establishment of the dictatorship, and these are consolidation of power, Hitler being underestimated by conservative elites, those same political elites basically assisting Hitler, violence, elimination of threats from within the party, and weak opposition. All of these factors help pave the way to the Nazi dictatorship. So first of all, how did Hitler consolidate his power? Factor number one, well, he exploited every opportunity to consolidate his power, kind of by misusing or abusing the democratic and the legal process. So he was Chancellor, as we know, in January of 33. He calls new elections for the 5th of March 33 at the same time. The stormtroopers, the brown shirts, the SA, are a campaign of street violence. They are smashing, breaking up the headquarters of left-wing parties. It's fear and intimidation. And then something of a godsend for Hitler, which is the burning down of the Reichstag. Now, the Reichstag, being a symbol of democracy, wasn't something that Hitler particularly loved, but the opportunity it presented was invaluable. A Dutch communist was actually caught at the scene, a guy called Marinus van der Lubbe, and the Nazis used this to create a fear that there was a communist uprising. So Marinus van der Lubbe is arrested, and fears of a communist uprising are fanned by the Nazis. So Hitler then goes to Hindenburg. Remember, Hindenburg is necessary to pass anything. You need Article 48. And he persuades Hitler to Hindenburg to use Article 48 on the 28th of February, shortly after the Reichstag fire, to pass the so-called Reichstag Fire Decree. This suspends all personal rights and freedoms. If you remember, way back when we looked at the German constitution, the new Weimar constitution, certain civil fundamental rights were guaranteed, such as freedom of imprisonment, from imprisonment without trial. That was gone now. It was an emergency power necessary to deal with this supposed communist revolution. It meant that political prisoners could be held indefinitely without trial, and Hitler used it to arrest 4,000 leading communists. Now, it's true actually that the communists probably wouldn't have minded taking over the German government, but they had neither the means nor the capability. So this was a phantom menace. Okay, elections in March 33. The Nazis now do win 288 seats. These are not conducted, these are not free elections really in any sense. They're excuse me for stumbling. People are voting, but there's an atmosphere of fear and intimidation, and Hitler's banned 81 of the communist deputies anyway. He wants actually to achieve not just an overall majority, he wants to achieve a 2/3 majority to actually change the German constitution and build on the powers he has got under the Reichstag Fire Decree. He wants to pass something called the Enabling Act. What does that involve? Well, in March of 33, the German parliament is convened in an opera house, actually, seeing as the Reichstag is burned down. They meet in the Kroll Opera House. He needs a 2/3 majority to pass his new enabling law. The opera house, by the way, is surrounded by brown shirt thugs shouting slogans and generally intimidating everyone involved. The 81 communists, as we know, were banned. Hitler does, however, get the support of the DNVP, perhaps not surprising, that is the right-wing party, but surprisingly perhaps he gets the support of the Catholic Centre Party as well, really largely through intimidation, promising that he won't interfere in their affairs. And it really is at this stage looking like his hold on power is unassailable. This Enabling Act allows Hitler to pass laws without the approval of the Reichstag or Hindenburg. Effectively, he can make laws. This is almost a dictator. It's supposed to be for 4 years, except, as we've said, the campaign of fear, violence, and intimidation on the streets continues using the SA bully boys. And let's have a look at factor number 2 now. Politicians basically underestimated the strength of Hitler's position and misread his intentions. They thought that, having 3 members, 3 Nazis out of a cabinet of 12, 9 of whom were just sort of old-fashioned conservatives like Papen. They thought they'd be able to control and dominate him. Yeah, there were only 2 Nazis apart from Hitler, but Goering was Minister of Police of Prussia. This was the largest German state with the capital Berlin, and it meant he controlled the police. Now, controlling the police is very effective for you if you're trying to take power. Furthermore, not only the police, he's got that street army, the Sturmabteilung, 2.5 million strong, eager to be unleashed, eager to use tactics of bullying, violence and intimidation. So he's not weak at all, he's powerful. He's underestimated again by these conservative elites. He's helped also. The Enabling Act, this is, by the way, this is von Papen here. They believe basically that they're getting strong central government replacing weak parliamentary rule. Yes, the Enabling Act removes power from the Reichstag and kind of gives it to the cabinet and to Hitler. Papen wasn't concerned though, because what he didn't see is that Hitler not only wanted to be free from the Reichstag, but also the president, the cabinet, and his coalition partners. He wanted unchallenged power, not to work as part of a conservative coalition. Fact number 3, again, the ruthlessness, widespread use of violence. In street battles with the communists, now because Prussia the Prussian police are controlled by Goering. The restraints against the stormtroopers are taken away, and in a campaign of revenge and hatred at people they see as traitors against Germany, there is a severe campaign of violence, beatings and even murders. Communists, socialists, Jews, Catholic priests or journalists who speak out against the Nazis are victimized, bullied, intimidated and taken off to the newly opened concentration camp of Dachau. Police basically often stood by and watched, approving of the SA brutality. Let's have a look then. So you should have made notes of these on your timeline already. Hindenburg appoints Hitler as Chancellor in January 33. In February, the Reichstag burns down. Following that, the day after is the Reichstag fire decree, allows him to get rid of civil rights. Then there's the March election. The Nazis work together. Also in March, the first concentration at Dachau opens. It's important to perhaps make a note of that, actually. Not yet a death camp, it's a place to house political prisoners, because the prisons are overflowing, they're full. 23rd of March, huge milestone, the Enabling Act. And Hitler then uses this Enabling Act to enact new laws, such as getting rid of major institutions in Germany, major organisations that could provide opposition, such as the trade unions. Trade unions are potentially powerful. The word union means, working together. They are dissolved. On the 14th of July, other political parties are banned. There is now one party, the Nazi Party. On the 12th of November, in new elections, the Nazis gain 92% of the vote, although there are actually no other parties to vote for. So, Hitler, is he all-powerful? He seems to be. There are no other political parties. He's got control of the police in the largest German state. Yet he is not invulnerable. There are possible challenges, possible threats to his leadership. You cannot really rely on governing a country, especially if you aspire to be, if you want to be a dictator, unless you have the support of the army. And the army were a bit cautious at this time because they were worried about this man, Ernst Röhm, head of the SA. Well, what does Hitler do next? He wants to eliminate the threat, and the threat this time is from within his own party. So now we're going to look at the event of the Night of the Long Knives. So factor 4, Hitler deals with a threat to his own position from within the Nazi party, from this guy, his erstwhile friend and colleague, Ernst Röhm. We've already mentioned that it's dangerous to upset army leaders. They are very, very capable of staging a military coup, and they are worried that the SA is a threat to the army. This is because Röhm actually wants the SA to take control of the army, and German military leaders are horrified that their respected Prussian military institution, this long and glorious history of efficient organisation and discipline, is going to be possibly taken over by this undisciplined street thug army. So they're very worried about that. Hitler also, he doesn't need his street thugs, his hooligans as much. He's got power now. Their violence is unnecessary and also slightly embarrassing. Furthermore, many of the senior leaders of the SA Ernst Röhm among them, were they liked some of the more left-wing elements of National Socialism. They liked the socialist aspect. And many in big business are worried, concerned about talk of a second revolution to establish more socialist principles, I guess you could call it. Hitler needs big business, he needs these wealthy industrialists in order to achieve his plans for rearmament. So basically now, the bully boys, the SA, have outlived their usefulness. Far more important to Hitler is gaining the support of the army and wealthy industrialists, and both of these are worried about Ulm. So what happens? On the 30th of June 1934, the leaders of the SA arrested by the Gestapo and shot. At the same time, he gets rid of other political figures who annoyed him or could possibly provide opposition, amongst them Strasser, Schleicher, and so on. So, what does this achieve for him? He's removed opposition from within his own movement. He's shown potential opponents the regime is ruthless, and therefore it intimidates people away from attempting any resistance to the regime. He's gained the loyalty of the army, and business elites are certainly relieved and hoping they can get their hands probably on some juicy contracts in terms of rearmament and public works. Opposition, weak. Trade unions, as I've already said, normally that can be quite a powerful force in society, but they're stunned by the speed and surprise of the attacks. They're eliminated bit by bit in cities around Germany. So the trade unions, the offices are shut down so quickly and with such violence, they're shocked. The SPD, the socialists, and the communists do not unite against the Nazis. Last of all, the political elites largely cooperated with the Nazi regime. If you remember, back in 1919, during the Kapp Putsch, the senior civil service, they did not support the attempts for a right-wing authoritarian takeover. They were sick of the violence and disorganisation and wanted to give perhaps Weimar democracy a chance. By the 1930s, they're quite comfortable working with a nationalist authoritarian regime. They're conservative, but many of them are not yet Nazi. So why did people like Franz Goertner, the Reich Justice Minister, why did they back illegal activities, street violence and so on, of the Nazis? Basically murders. They believed it was necessary in unusual circumstances. In other words, under the potential threat, the phantom menace, if you will, of a communist uprising. Okay, August 1934, Hindenburg dies. Hitler now assumes the office of Reich President and combines it with the Reich Chancellor. He is now Führer, undisputed political leader, political dictator of Germany. And he becomes unchallenged dictator, essentially, when soon after the army swear a personal oath of loyalty to Adolf Hitler. I've actually got that on YouTube, so let's have a look, play that. It's quite spooky, actually. Okay. Now, I guess that's spooky because it's committing themselves to a man that they didn't know, but we have the hindsight to know that he was going to drag them into misery and death by the millions, and others at the hands of the German army. So in summary, path to dictatorship, 33 to 34, underestimated by the conservative elites. They thought they'd hired him. This wasn't the case. Ruthless in using democratic and sort of semi-legal means to pass laws such as the Reichstag Fire Decree, and later on in March the Enabling Act, giving him a lot of legal dictatorial powers. A campaign of violence, both against enemies outside the Nazi party and within, such as the Night of the Long Knives, when he eliminates this threat from the SA, gains the support of the army and big business. Weak opposition, too divided to stop Hitler, and stunned by the speed with which they move, and the political elites deciding that they are happy to work with the regime. Hope you made some good notes there, and good luck with the